Have you ever noticed that the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest? They don't rush to defend themselves. They don't argue over every opinion. They don't feel the need to win every conversation. Instead, they possess something far more valuable than quick words. They possess control. And in the eyes of Stoics, control is the highest form of power. We live in a world that constantly encourages us to react. Someone criticizes you. Respond immediately. Someone insults you online. Fight back. Someone misunderstands your intentions. Explain yourself. Someone doubts your ability. Prove them wrong. It seems as though every moment is an invitation to defend your pride. But here's the question very few people ask. What if responding isn't strength? What if your constant need to react is exactly what's draining your power? This is where Stoicism offers perspective that feels almost revolutionary in today's world. The Stoics believe that every unnecessary reaction is a surrender of your inner freedom. The moment someone else can control your emotions, they begin to control you. Think about that for a moment. If a stranger's words can ruin your entire day, who truly has the power? If one rude comment keeps replaying in your mind for hours, who is carrying the burden? Not the person who spoke. You are. The Stoics understood something timeless. Power is not measured by how loudly you can respond. It is measured by how calmly you can remain. Imagine standing beside a massive mountain during a thunderstorm. Lightning crashes. Rain pours endlessly. The wind howls with incredible force. Yet the mountain does not argue with the storm. It does not panic. It does not attempt to silence the thunder. It simply remains what it is. Steady, unmoved, unshaken. This is the image the Stoics wanted us to become. Not emotionless, not cold, but deeply rooted. A person whose peace cannot be stolen by every passing opinion. Many people confuse silence with weakness. They assume that if you don't defend yourself immediately, you've somehow lost. But history often tells a different story. Think about the people you've admired most in life. Were they constantly trying to convince everyone of their worth? Or did their actions eventually speak louder than their explanations? The truth is simple. Words can create impressions. Character creates respect. And respect lasts far longer than impressions. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that every criticism deserves an answer. It doesn't. Some opinions are based on misunderstanding. Some come from jealousy. Some come from insecurity. And some are simply spoken by people who have no interest in understanding you. Trying to correct every false opinion is like trying to stop every wave from reaching the shore. You'll exhaust yourself. Meanwhile, the ocean continues exactly as it always has. The Stoics often reminded themselves that they could not control what others believed, but they could control how they chose to respond, or whether they responded at all. This distinction changes everything. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy stones. Each stone represents an unnecessary argument, an insult, a social media debate, a grudge, a sarcastic remark, a need to explain yourself. Every time you choose to react impulsively, another stone is added. Eventually, the weight becomes unbearable, not because life became harder, but because you insisted on carrying burdens that were never yours. Now imagine removing those stones one by one. Someone insults you. You don't carry it. Someone misunderstands you. You calmly move forward. Someone refuses to appreciate your efforts. You continue improving anyway. Suddenly, your journey becomes lighter, not because people changed, because you did. This is one of the most liberating truths in Stoicism. Your peace increases in direct proportion to the number of unnecessary battles you refuse to fight. Think about fire. What happens when you continuously feed it wood? It grows. What happens when you stop feeding it? Eventually, it dies. Arguments work exactly the same way. Many conflicts survive only because two people continue supplying emotional fuel. The moment one person chooses calm instead of reaction, the conflict begins losing its power. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean accepting injustice. The Stoics were not teaching cowardice. They were teaching discernment. Know which battles deserve your strength. And more importantly, know which ones don't. Because your energy is limited. Every emotional outburst costs something. Every angry reply demands attention. Every unnecessary explanation steals time. Time you could have invested in learning, growing, building, healing, improving your life. Instead, it disappears into conversations that accomplish nothing. Imagine an archer preparing to hit a distant target. Would a wise archer waste every arrow shooting at birds flying randomly across the sky? Of course not. Every arrow matters. Every shot has purpose. Your attention is no different. If you spend it on every distraction, you won't have enough left for what truly matters. One reason people struggle to stay silent is because silence feels uncomfortable. It feels as though we're losing control. But often the opposite is true. Silence is evidence that you've already gained control. When someone insults you and you immediately react, your emotions have taken command. When someone insults you and you pause before speaking, your wisdom has entered the conversation. That pause changes everything. Within a few seconds, anger can become understanding. Pride can become patience. Impulse can become intention. This is why the Stoics practiced reflection before action, not because they were slow thinkers, because they understood that quick emotions often create lasting regret. How many friendships have ended because of words spoken in anger? How many opportunities have disappeared because someone couldn't control their temper? How many families carry wounds created by a single sentence that could never be taken back? Words leave echoes. Silence rarely does. There's an ancient image that perfectly illustrates this idea. Imagine dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples spread in every direction. One small action creates consequences far beyond its beginning. Your reactions work the same way. A careless response today may create problems that last for years. A thoughtful silence may prevent problems from ever existing. This is why wisdom often sounds quieter than emotion. Emotion demands expression. Wisdom chooses timing. One of the most overlooked forms of strength is the ability to delay your response. Notice how differently you think after 10 minutes, or after one night of sleep. What felt unbearable yesterday often seems insignificant today. The Stoics knew that time reveals what emotion hides. Many problems disappear simply because we stop feeding them. This doesn't mean ignoring every issue. It means refusing to let temporary emotions become permanent decisions. Imagine a king sitting on his throne. Messengers enter throughout the day. Some bring good news. Some bring terrible news. Some exaggerate. Some lie. If the king reacted emotionally to every message before verifying the truth, his kingdom would quickly descend into chaos. A wise ruler listens first, reflects second, acts last. Your mind deserves the same leadership. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves expression. Not every criticism deserves attention. You are the ruler of your inner kingdom. Rule wisely. There's another reason silence is powerful. It creates mystery. People expect immediate reactions. When they don't receive one, they often begin questioning their own assumptions. Someone who constantly explains themselves appears uncertain. Someone who calmly continues living according to their values demonstrates confidence. Confidence rarely announces itself. It reveals itself through consistency. Imagine two oak trees during a violent storm. One bends wildly with every gust of wind. The other remains rooted because its strength was built long before the storm arrived. The storm doesn't create strength. It reveals it. Life works the same way. Criticism doesn't create your character. It exposes a character you've already built. If your peace disappears every time someone challenges you, the problem isn't the criticism. The problem is that your confidence still depends on other people's opinions. The Stoics wanted freedom from that dependence, because true freedom begins when your self-worth no longer requires constant approval. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of all. The less you respond to distractions, the more attention you have for your purpose. The less you argue with people, the more time you spend improving yourself. The less you seek validation, the more confidence you naturally develop. The less you allow the outside world to control your emotions, the stronger your inner world becomes. That is the quiet power of Stoicism. It is not the power to control others. It is the far greater power of no longer being controlled by them. There is a moment in every person's life when they begin to understand a profound truth. Not every invitation deserves your acceptance. Not every argument deserves your attention. And not every opinion deserves space in your mind. This realization changes everything. Most people believe power comes from having the perfect comeback. The Stoics believe power comes from realizing that no comeback is necessary. Think about how much energy disappears every single day. You replay conversations that ended hours ago. You imagine what you should have said. You prepare arguments for battles that may never happen. You defend yourself against criticisms that exist only in your imagination. By the time the day is over, your body feels exhausted. Not because you worked hard, but because your mind never stopped fighting invisible battles. The Stoics understood that the mind could become its own greatest enemy. If you allow every outside event to enter your thoughts without question, your inner world becomes as chaotic as the world around you. Imagine your mind as a beautiful garden. Every thought you entertain is a seed. Some seeds grow into confidence. Others become fear. Some blossom into patience. Others spread like weeds, choking everything healthy around them. Now imagine allowing every stranger to walk into your garden, carrying their own bag of seeds. Some bring anger. Some bring envy. Some bring gossip. Some bring resentment. If you never choose what stays and what leaves, your garden will no longer belong to you. This is why the Stoics were incredibly selective about what they allowed into their minds. They understood that protecting your attention is one of the greatest forms of self-respect, because whatever repeatedly enters your mind eventually shapes your character. If your thoughts are constantly filled with other people's judgments, you slowly become imprisoned by them. But if your thoughts are filled with purpose, discipline, and wisdom, your life begins to reflect those qualities instead. Every day presents a choice. Will you feed your distractions or your growth? The answer determines the direction of your future. One of the greatest misunderstandings about silence is that people assume it means surrender. But silence is not surrender when it comes from strength. A lion does not roar every time another animal makes noise. It doesn't spend its day proving that it is powerful. Its confidence exists independently of recognition. Human beings often do the opposite. We feel compelled to defend ourselves at every opportunity. We explain ourselves to people who have already decided not to understand. We seek approval from people who are impossible to satisfy. We exhaust ourselves trying to control stories that were never ours to control. The Stoics asked a simple question: why give your peace away so easily? If someone chooses to misunderstand you, can you truly force them to understand? If someone is committed to disliking you, will another explanation change their heart? Usually not. And yet, countless people spend years trying. Imagine trying to straighten your reflection in disturbed water. The harder you reach into the water, the more distorted the reflection becomes. Only when the surface becomes still does clarity return. Relationships often work the same way. Sometimes silence creates more understanding than endless explanation. Sometimes time answers questions better than words ever could. This doesn't mean avoiding honest conversations. There are moments when speaking is necessary. There are times when justice requires courage. The Stoics never encouraged silence in the face of genuine wrongdoing. Instead, they encourage speaking from reason rather than emotion. Notice the difference. One response comes from anger. The other comes from wisdom. Anger seeks victory. Wisdom seeks resolution. Anger wants to punish. Wisdom wants to improve. The words may sound similar, but their effect is completely different. Consider a skilled sailor navigating a storm. He cannot command the wind. He cannot stop the waves, but he can control his sails. He adjusts instead of complaining. He responds instead of panicking. He remains focused on what is within his control. This was the heart of Stoicism. Your emotions are like the weather, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, sometimes completely unpredictable. But your character is the captain. The captain decides how to respond, not the storm. Far too many people allow temporary emotions to become permanent decisions. They quit careers in moments of frustration. They destroy friendships in moments of anger. They abandon dreams because of temporary discouragement. Then years later, they wonder what happened. Usually, nothing happened except one thing. They allowed emotion to become their leader. The Stoics believe leadership begins inside yourself. Lead your thoughts before they lead you. Lead your habits before they control you. Lead your reactions before they become your identity. There's another lesson that modern life constantly challenges: the need to always have the last word. Why do we crave it so much? Because our ego mistakes silence for defeat. But reality often proves the opposite. Imagine two people arguing. One continues shouting louder and louder. The other calmly smiles, wishes them well, and walks away. Who truly appears stronger? The one desperate to continue, or the one who no longer needs to? Walking away is difficult, not because it requires physical effort, because it requires emotional maturity. It asks you to place your peace above your pride, and pride rarely surrenders willingly. The Stoics knew that ego is a demanding master. It constantly whispers, defend yourself, prove them wrong, show them who you are. But wisdom quietly replies, you already know who you are. That is enough. The person who knows their own worth has little interest in debating it. Think of a diamond buried beneath the earth. It remains valuable whether anyone sees it or not. Its worth is not created by recognition. It already exists. Your character should work the same way. If your confidence depends entirely on applause, criticism will always have the power to destroy it. But if your confidence comes from your principles, no opinion can take it away. Another habit the Stoics practiced was observing before reacting. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float past. Some are beautiful. Some are damaged. Some disappear quickly. Others remain in sight for a while. Your thoughts behave the same way. Not every thought deserves action. Not every emotion deserves expression. Some thoughts are simply passing visitors. Observe them. Learn from them. Then let them continue downstream. Many people become prisoners because they chase every passing thought as though it were absolute truth. I've been criticized, so I must be worthless. I failed today, so I'll never succeed. Someone rejected me, so I'll always be alone. These conclusions are rarely true. They are emotional interpretations. The Stoics taught themselves to separate facts from stories. The fact might be, someone disagreed with you. The story becomes, everyone must secretly dislike me. The fact might be, you made one mistake. The story becomes, I'm a failure. The fact lasts a moment. The story can last a lifetime if you continue believing it. This is why mastering your mind is more important than mastering your circumstances. Circumstances constantly change. Your way of thinking stays with you. And perhaps nowhere is this more important than when facing criticism. Constructive criticism can become one of your greatest teachers. Destructive criticism deserves no permanent home in your mind. Learn to distinguish between the two. One helps you grow. The other simply seeks to wound. Respond differently to each. The Stoics believed wisdom meant listening without becoming emotionally enslaved. Take what is useful. Leave the rest behind. As you continue practicing this way of living, something remarkable begins to happen. People may still criticize you, but their words no longer determine your mood. People may still misunderstand you, but you no longer feel compelled to explain every decision. People may still doubt your future, but their doubt becomes fuel instead of fear. This is real emotional freedom, not the absence of problems, the absence of unnecessary suffering. Eventually, your silence begins speaking louder than arguments ever could. Your consistency answers accusations. Your discipline answers doubt. Your calmness answers chaos. Your actions answer criticism. And perhaps the most surprising part of all, many of the people who once tried to provoke you eventually lose interest, not because they suddenly changed, but because they discovered they could no longer control you. Nothing frustrates manipulation more than someone who refuses to be manipulated. Nothing weakens conflict more than someone who refuses to feed it. Nothing strengthens character more than choosing wisdom over impulse. This is what the Stoics understood centuries ago. Power is not found in dominating conversations. Power is found in mastering yourself. Because when you master yourself, very little in the outside world can master you. There comes a point in your journey when you stop asking one question, what should I say? And you begin asking a far more powerful one, what deserves my energy? That single shift changes the direction of your life. Most people spend years believing that strength is something they display to the world. The Stoics believe strength is something you cultivate within yourself. It is invisible before it is undeniable. Think of a mighty oak tree. People admire its towering branches and its thick trunk, but they rarely think about what lies beneath the surface. Its roots stretch deep into the earth, unseen by anyone passing by. When fierce winds arrive, it is not the branches that keep the tree standing. It is the strength of the roots. Your character is no different. The world sees your actions, but your actions are supported by something invisible. Your discipline, your values, your patience, and your ability to remain calm when life tries to shake you. If those roots are weak, every insult becomes a storm. Every setback feels like a disaster. Every disagreement becomes a personal attack. But when your roots are strong, you no longer feel the need to react to everything around you. You understand that not every disturbance deserves to disturb your peace. One of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that being heard is more important than being wise. People interrupt before listening. They argue before understanding. They speak to win rather than to learn. The Stoics walked a different path. They believed wisdom begins with observation. When you observe more than you react, you begin noticing things that others miss. You notice that angry people often carry hidden pain. You notice that those who constantly criticize others are frequently battling their own insecurities. You notice that many arguments have nothing to do with truth and everything to do with ego. This realization makes it easier to remain calm, not because you stop caring, but because you stop taking everything personally. Imagine standing in the middle of a heavy rainstorm. Would you become angry at the rain? Would you shout at the clouds? Would you demand that the sky obey your wishes? Of course not. You would simply seek shelter and continue your journey. The Stoics viewed difficult people in much the same way. Some people act from ignorance, some from fear, some from jealousy, some from frustration. You cannot stop them from behaving according to their character, but you can choose your own. That choice is where your power lives. Too many people surrender their peace because they believe every disrespect demands retaliation. But retaliation often creates an endless cycle. One harsh word invites another. One insult becomes 2, then 4, then 10. Eventually, no one remembers what the argument was about. They only remember the damage it caused. The Stoics understood that the strongest chain can be broken by refusing to add another link. Silence has a remarkable ability to end conflicts that words only prolong. This doesn't mean allowing people to walk over you. There's an important difference between silence and submission. Submission comes from fear. Silence comes from confidence. Submission says, I don't believe I have a choice. Silence says, I have a choice, and this argument is not worthy of my attention. That distinction changes everything. When your silence comes from strength, it becomes impossible for others to mistake it for weakness. In fact, people often become unsettled by it. They expect anger. They expect excuses. They expect emotional reactions. Instead, they find calm, and calm is difficult to manipulate. Consider a still lake at sunrise. Its surface reflects the world with perfect clarity. Throw stones into it, and the image becomes distorted. Your mind is the same. Every unnecessary reaction is another stone. Every grudge creates another ripple. Every emotional outburst clouds your judgment. But when you refuse to react impulsively, your mind regains its clarity. And clarity is one of the greatest advantages a person can possess. Clear minds make better decisions. Clear minds solve problems more effectively. Clear minds recognize opportunities hidden inside difficulties. Most people lose those opportunities because their emotions blind them. The Stoics believe that wisdom is impossible without emotional discipline, not because emotions are bad, but because emotions become dangerous when they are allowed to rule instead of inform. Fear may warn you of danger, but it should not decide your future. Anger may reveal injustice, but it should not dictate your actions. Sadness may remind you of what matters, but it should not convince you that hope is gone. Every emotion has a purpose. None should become your master. This is why the Stoics train themselves every single day, not to eliminate emotion, but to prevent emotion from becoming authority. Imagine a skilled horseman riding a powerful horse. The horse represents emotion, strong, fast, full of energy, but without guidance, it runs wherever instinct leads. The rider represents reason, Reason doesn't destroy the horse. It directs it. Together, they move with purpose. Without reason, even the strongest horse becomes dangerous. Without emotional awareness, even the wisest rider cannot move forward. Balance creates strength. As you continue practicing this discipline, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop measuring success by how many arguments you've won. Instead, you measure success by how much peace you preserved. You realize that walking away is sometimes a greater victory than staying to fight. You discover that proving yourself to everyone is unnecessary when your life already reflects your values. People may continue talking about you. Let them. People may misunderstand your intentions. Let them. People may underestimate your abilities. Let them, because eventually, reality speaks louder than opinions. A tree never announces that it will bear fruit. It simply grows, season after season, root after root, until one day, the fruit appears naturally. Your life should follow the same rhythm. Grow quietly, learn consistently, work patiently, improve daily. Allow your results to introduce you. One of the greatest signs of maturity is no longer feeling the need to correct every false story told about you. Why? Because time has a way of revealing truth. Those who know your character won't need explanations. Those determined to misunderstand you won't believe them anyway. So why sacrifice your peace trying to satisfy everyone? The Stoics believe that reputation is valuable, but character is priceless. Reputation depends on other people's opinions. Character depends on your own actions. One can change overnight. The other grows stronger with every disciplined choice you make. Choose the one that cannot be taken away. Perhaps the greatest reward of responding less is not that other people change. Many won't. The greatest reward is that you change. You become slower to anger, quicker to understand, more patient in difficulty, more confident in silence, more focused on your purpose. You stop chasing every distraction because you recognize its true cost. Every unnecessary reaction steals a piece of your attention. Every unnecessary conflict steals a piece of your time. Every unnecessary explanation steals a piece of your energy. And these are the three resources you can never fully recover. Guard them wisely. Imagine reaching the final years of your life. Looking back on everything you've experienced, do you think you'll be proud of the arguments you won? Or the peace you protected? Will you remember the strangers you proved wrong? Or the dreams you quietly built through discipline? The answer is obvious. Life is too short to spend it reacting to everything. Your purpose deserves more than that. Your future deserves more than that. You deserve more than that. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, will responding improve my life or only satisfy my ego? That one question has the power to prevent years of unnecessary suffering. Because not every battle deserves your sword. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your reply. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Not because you are afraid, but because you have become wise enough to recognize that your peace is worth more than proving a point. That is a quiet strength the Stoics sought. A strength that cannot be shaken by criticism. A confidence that does not depend on applause. A mind that remains steady in the middle of chaos. And a life guided not by impulse, but by principle. So, as you leave this message today, remember this. Every time you choose patience over anger, you become stronger. Every time you choose understanding over retaliation, you become wiser. Every time you choose silence over unnecessary conflict, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. And every time you refuse to let someone else control your emotions, you become a little more unstoppable. Because true power has never belonged to the person who speaks the loudest. It belongs to the one who has mastered themselves. Thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Choose one lesson from today and put it into practice the next time life tests your patience. If you're on a journey to build unshakable discipline, inner peace, and timeless wisdom through Stoic philosophy, subscribe to the channel and join this growing community. Until next time, guard your mind, protect your peace, and remember, the less you respond to what doesn't matter, the more powerful you become.